I'm Michael Snow, and I want to talk about the current exhibition at the AGO of my sculpture, which is called Objects of Vision, and which is, I think, a very apropos title. All the work in the exhibition comes from different periods, but they all relate to a conception of sculpture that I had starting in the 50s, which is that when you make an object, which is what a sculpture is, primarily an object, that is meant to guide the spectator's vision over the work, to direct it. You know, so as I kept on working off and on this area of my work, the whole kind of concept of the work itself, the thing I was making, as a director of attention, became an important aspect of it. So that they all involve themselves in saying, here is this object, and to appraise this object, the object says to you, look here and look there. For example, transformer is a spruce tree which I cut down and sharpened, so to speak, which is hung horizontally like a kind of pointer or compass. And while you do look at it as a shape, it asks for to be seen by moving along it. It's a long line, and it zips off the end, or the other way around. There's something that's really important about it, is that one end of it is raw, so to speak, and the other end is transformed and polished. So there's a kind of progression in it, but it does something that art probably shouldn't do, is that you go off one end of it. And also, it is a little bit dangerous because it's polished to a needle point at one end. At any rate, if you compare Transformer, to another piece that's in the show called Core. Core is the complete opposite of Transformer, and it was turned the way pots are turned. It is a cylinder, and as is appropriate to turning things on a wheel, it goes around. And so the work itself asks the spectator to go around, rather than follow a point, which is what the Transformer does. Core is about circling the object, and there's a kind of continuity to the circling that you'll make, and I think it's interesting. All these things have to do with vision, and in thinking about vision, one-eyedness became a kind of aspect. I have done some works, and they're in the show too, that do feature binocular vision, that we see things with two eyes. I have some family experience in this regard, because when I was 6 years old, my father was a civil engineer, and he was in an accidental explosion where he lost one eye, and the other eye was okay for about 10 or 12 years, and then he went blind. So I've been touched, not as much as him, by optical tragedy. And Monocular Abyss sort of came from thinking about looking with one eye. The exterior shape has a circular hole, which I think invites looking in it. So, and it's a shape that's a perspectival shape that goes down to the floor, and the whole thing sits on the floor. And when you look in it, you see the interior walls going down into an abyss, into complete darkness, because the light doesn't reach the rest of it. Which I think is kind of an interesting thing, because the exterior tells you that the shape goes right down to the floor, but when you look in, you can't see that proved in a way, because it goes down into darkness. So this might not be felt or thought about, but it is a piece that contains absolute darkness, and you see darkness. I wanted to make a piece that you would be within when you saw it, as opposed to, for example, in core, that you must be outside it to see it. And in this case, I wanted to make, I ended up making something that was done on an industrial brake, bending quite heavy pieces of steel. And I wanted to make it out of one piece if possible. It ends up being made out of about 3 pieces. But it's part of it is a bend that becomes a seat, and above the bend, or as part of the bend, are 2 long planes of metal that clasp at the end, so that if you sit in it, you see this interior, which is the extent of the vision that you can have within the piece of it. And I think there can be a sensation of being in something in which there's a kind of memory of how it was made, because it's very heavy steel, and there's a lot of power in bending it to become what it is. People sometimes are told not to touch things, and there are quite a few things that in the show that you shouldn't touch. But seated sculpture is one that I hope people will sit on. If you don't sit in it or on it, I think you can see its intention, that it looks like a seat. And then if you're in the seat, you see this. So it's very much a director of attention when you're within it. And if you're outside of it, I think you can understand that it is made to direct your attention to the arms that they are, and the fold that you look at. But there are all kinds of other things. There's a piece called Blind, which is 4 kind of screens of metal of different sizes, and it's 8 feet by 8 feet, and you look through it and you can walk in it. But it's a thing that makes these planes visible at different levels of the work, and since you can move around, it changes a lot. And the superimposition is like a big drawing in a way of cross-hatching. The superimpositions make all kinds of visual effects that are constantly changing, because sculpture is something that may be static, but the spectator moves. And all of the works consider that in different ways.